Welcome. People coming in. So I'm just going to give another couple of minutes for other people to join as well. I think we've got quite a few people registered, so seeing who's going to come.
Hello.
Hi, Bethan. How are you?
Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. It's lovely to see everybody's names that I haven't seen for a long time. Hi, Becky.
Oh, hello. Sorry, I was just muting. I didn't know if I needed to be muted or quite what.
No, that's good. That's good.
Okay. Shall I mute myself?
Yeah, if you want to mute yourself for the time being, and then we can, just the background. That's brilliant.
Okie doke.
Just letting everybody else in now. Hi, Zora.
Hello.
Hello, Sue.
Hiya.
Hi, Naleen.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
Good, thank you. Good, good. Okay, so we're now at 1 o'clock, so we'll get started. And then if there's anybody else that's joining us, I'll just be intermittently admitting people into the session. Here we go, Stefania, Fiona, a couple more people. Okay, wonderful. So as you are already, if everyone can keep themselves on mute, because there's a few of us, if you could raise your hand if you want to answer a question or if you've got anything to say, or you can use the chat function as well. There will be some questions that I'll be asking for reflections in regards to how people are going with their mental health first aid and how they're putting it into practice. So that would be wonderful. Jasmine, Fiona, brilliant. Okay, great. So welcome. So we've got kind of 16 of us at the moment, which is wonderful. We've got 82 people registered. So it's likely that they're going to access the recording afterwards as well. So it is being recorded. All of our discussions will only remain with the people who have registered for the session today, and also the individuals who are in our AV Well Hub, which you obviously are because you've been able to access the event today. So it won't be going anywhere else outside of that. If you're on the Facebook group, so the recording will be on the Facebook group as well, and you can access it in your members area in the AV Well Hub if you want to, if you've missed the link via the email. So what are we going to do today? So the aims of the workshop then, we want to understand the role of a mental health first aider, which many of you have been putting into practice for quite some time now. So almost 3 years for a few of you, some of you most recently. So you'll all be bringing different experiences to the session today, which is great. Yeah, which is what we wanted in bringing you guys together. We're going to recap on algae, again, probably fresher for some people than others. So, reviewing algae, in regards to how we've been supporting people, and also how that might have changed as well, given the recent pandemic. So over the kind of past 20 months, what's been happening differently in regards to our interactions with other people, whether that be our colleagues or people outside of work as well. We're going to be getting a bit of an update, thinking about some of the figures and facts around the impact of COVID on people's mental health, particularly in the workplace. And again, if people have got reflections on how that's been going in your workplace, any concerns or anything like that, then please do bring that to the discussions. We're going to think about our responsibilities as a mental health first aider, what they might look like. Again, how they've gone well, any barriers that there might be in regards to people putting mental health first aid into practice at work or outside of work. We're going to be thinking about boundaries of the role, and we're also specifically going to be thinking about boundaries in relation to self-care as well. So we're going to be thinking about self-care, how that's really important in the role of the mental health first aider. And if there's anything that we can promote in relation to boundaries, balancing maybe working from home and working in the office. We're going to think about how we can engage other people into our role as a mental health first aider. So whether that be management or HR, and if people are in management or are in HR, again, what's been going well for you guys, and sharing that with the other people who are on the call today. And then finally, and importantly, any kind of questions that you have, we can save until the end. And similarly, if anybody's got any cases or any concerns about an individual, as long as that remains confidential, we can have a bit of an overview and talk that through as a group, but also that I can support as well. So we have set a couple of hours aside for the session today. However, it just, again, is dependent upon interactions, any questions, but all will be recorded. Okay, fantastic. So first things first, it'll be really great to think about what your expectations of the workshop are today. So either kind of raise your hand or put it in the chat box what kind of things you were hoping to get out of the session, or anything that you would like to discuss within the session that I can make sure we bring up. So as I said, anything in the chat box or anything from you guys. That's good. Expectations are low. So hopefully I'll be able to cover lots of information. Oh, we've got a couple of things. Here we go. A bit of a refresher. Wonderful. Definitely, Katie. So we're going to think about refreshing our algae skills, and also practical tips. Yes, for working with people remotely. So we are going to be talking about that, Becky, as well. So that's brilliant. Great stuff. Fantastic. So first of all, then, just a bit of a summary in regards to, the past kind of 20 months, couple of years, and how that's impacted on people's mental health. You will not be surprised, I'm sure, by some of the information that I'm going to provide you here. So Westfield Health, who research kind of mental health at work, they've got a lot of supportive resources available on their website as well. And they're also an employee assistance provider, and I've done a little bit of work with them historically, have done some research into the impact of COVID. So in 2020, 2021, we saw mental health days rising by 10%, and that's costing, within the UK, £14 billion. This is significant, isn't it? So that's thinking about, people being off work, but also, thinking about productivity and effectiveness as well. So we talked quite a lot, didn't we, in our mental health first aid courses around this idea of presenteeism. And this is also something that has significantly risen, largely due to the anxiety around COVID and the impact that that might have on people's health and well-being, as well as their employment status. We've seen a third of employees say their mental health affects their productivity on a weekly basis. And again, whilst we know that poor mental health can impact on productivity, the fact that it's on a weekly basis, the impacts that COVID was having was really quite significant and still remains so as well. A third of employees reported that their mental well-being at their organisation is not good or not good at all. So thinking about the qualitative information that came from that was people saying that they just didn't feel like anxieties were taken seriously, considering the impact of COVID. And also, since people have been going back into offices, that again, the fears around catching COVID at work haven't been taken seriously as well. So that's something else. And in addition to that, people being supported whilst working from home, people having regular contact with people whilst working from home, and if people have been furloughed as well. So a lot of people had reported that whilst furloughed, people management weren't kind of keeping them in the loop, and they were really worried that they were going to lose their job. Again, understandably. Just going to let a couple more people in. So a quarter of employees are looking and have been looking for that extra wellbeing support from their employers, and also from their management as well. So where these regular catch-ups can occur, where they can be supported, whether that be with flexible working, working from home, maybe working in the office, or also, managing some of their fears around COVID and the measurements that are in place in the workplace as well. Just out of interest, again, in the chat function or raising hands and having a quick chat with everybody, how have people found the impact of COVID on mental health in their workplace? What are people's reflections on that? Welcome to Sally as well, who's joined us.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please, Amy?
Yeah, of course. So how have people found the impact of COVID on their workplace, and what have they noticed in regards to workplace mental health? Lovely, Beth, and thank you. So here we've got kind of everyone has had a very different experience, but some have really struggled. And I think that is probably quite common, actually, that some people have managed quite well, probably at a surprise to themselves as well. But yes, that there have been many people that have struggled for many different reasons. What are people's thoughts on some of the reasons why people have struggled? Particularly, or that they've been dealing with at work? Yeah, more anxiety, stress related issues, definitely. Adjustment, yeah, it can be quite overwhelming. Yeah, and I think the overwhelming in relation to COVID just in general, but also overwhelming actually having to change how we work as well. You know, it can be really difficult, can't it? Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, yeah. So we've got also talking, you know, somebody says that they've been talking to somebody who's been described as working on their own at home as a form of trauma. Yes, definitely. Yeah, because of that loneliness, we've got around loneliness, isolation, and also this idea of increasing workload, which again doesn't, you know, think about the impact of that when you have an increase in workload and you have a change of environment and you might be feeling isolated and lonely. You know, again, thinking about that stress container, that's a lot, isn't it? Yeah, and people feeling like it, you know, it's difficult to find the resources in regards to how to cope as well because of the unexpected. We've got here that found that I needed to take a different approach with different people. Some found working from home reassuring, some needed to get back into work. Yeah, needed to support all scenarios. And I think as I'm running through, you know, that seems really quite a common loop there, that everyone was kind of coping with it very differently, having to think on your toes and thinking how to support people very differently, dependent on those scenarios as well. And how the reassurance around that, because that, you know, isolation versus needing social contact again is really important, isn't it? And brilliant. So we've got also here blurred lines between work and home life. And we're going to talk about that as well, particularly for those people who are still going to continue working from home and have flexi working moving forward. So how we can support people to have those boundaries and reduce those blurred lines around, yeah, starts, finish times. Yeah, also thinking about our communication as well. Brilliant. So lots and lots of impact. And I'm sure that we felt it ourselves, yeah, as mental health first aiders. It doesn't make us immune from all of this stuff, does it? And I said to the people who have been on the courses most recently, you know, the biggest challenge personally for me was balancing work and homeschooling. And then quite frankly, recovering for the past 6 months from homeschooling. So yeah, everyone's experience very, very different. Yeah, and looking after other, you know, family members. Great, brilliant. So hopefully we can touch on some of those. So, as Katie requested as well, a bit of a recap on Algae. So obviously Algae is our framework, how we're going to support people, yeah, ensuring that we're consistent in the support that we provide for people as well, and that we're covering all of these, we're covering all bases. And as I always say, it's not that we start with A and then we don't do anything else. It's all simultaneous. So who can remember, again, hands up or shout out, chat in the chat box, what the 3 A's in A for Algae stand for? Approach, fantastic. Thanks, Julie. So we've got approach. So we've got to approach the person, or they might be approaching us dependent on the circumstances. Brilliant. Assess, fantastic, Nalene, thank you. So assess, what are we assessing? Yeah, what is there a crisis situation? Is somebody talking to us and expressing you know, content of their speech that gives us a bit of a gut feeling around risk? So are they saying things along the lines of, I can't cope, I just can't go on, I'm finding this really difficult? So we would then be backing that up, wouldn't we? Yeah, with the assistance. Remember, yeah, good practice. If we believe that somebody might be having suicidal thoughts, we want to ensure that we're asking the question directly. You said that you feel like you can't go on, you can't cope, you can't manage anymore. does that mean that you're having suicidal thoughts? And if that's the case, then we need to carry on. I don't know if anyone can remember with our CPR. Have they got a current plan? Have they got any prior behaviour in regards to that? And also, what resources have they got available to them? But again, you can refresh on that. Fantastic. Well remembered, everybody. L then. What does L stand for? Listen. Brilliant. Yeah, we're going to listen, aren't we? We're going to utilize those fantastic listening skills, but brilliant, Nolene, without judgment. Okay, we all make judgments. We love them. Yeah, it's what makes us human a lot of the time. And it's not about that we are completely eradicating all of our judgment, but we are being mindful of them. And we're also putting them aside so we can support somebody effectively. Because as we remember, our judgments come from our frame of reference. So that frame of reference, that backpack of experiences that we carry around with us every single day, often can cloud the support we provide other people. So that can be that we either are, they assist with the support we provide other people, or they restrict. So again, reviewing our frame of reference can be really important. Next one then, so we've got G. G is always a tricky one. A lot of people always forget G. Give reassurance, close. Give support and information. Thank you, Bethan. Brilliant. So we're going to give support and information, ensuring that the support and information comes from reputable sources. We're also giving statistics, facts and figures, making people feel like they're not alone as well. Okay, it's not uncommon, as we know, to experience mental health issues, poor mental health at times. So yeah, giving that support. Wonderful. Our first E. Yeah, lovely, Noelia. So encourage professional help. So encourage professional help. Again, making sure that it comes from reputable sources. We're utilising the resources in the backs of your manuals as well. And in relation to that, what I found that people were finding difficult was if they were talking to somebody and say they had signs and symptoms of depression, or they were talking to us about having symptoms of depression, getting your manual and all of the resources and writing them down, again, we're not kind of photocopying the book, was really difficult. So as you'll see in your members area on the website, you can go to topic area and say you can pick depression, and then all of the helplines and support lines and resources from your manual, but also additional ones as well, are available to print out. So you can print them out to somebody, and pass them on, or you can email them to somebody as well, just to make that a little bit easier for you. Brilliant. And then the final E then, so we had encourage professional help. What might be our final E? Brilliant. Yeah. Encourage self-help, definitely. And any other supports as well. So what other supports are available that will enhance our mental health and our well-being? Great. Brilliant. Just let another couple of people in. So there's your recap. You'll get these slides in addition to the recording as well. So that'll be available. And if you're due for a refresher as well, that's going to be coming up every 3 years, and you'll get a reminder for that as well. And we'll continue to go through algae. So out of interest then, thinking about some reflections, particularly over these past 20 months, in what way has A and L had to change? Okay, so our approach, first of all, so in relation to supporting people through COVID, and also thinking about maybe people working from home, In what way have we had to change the approach? How are we recognizing some of these signs and symptoms, guys? Yeah, so yeah, brilliant. So we've got here a couple of ideas and comments. So quite difficult. So I'm finding it quite difficult to check in with people regularly, figuring out the idea of kind of virtual helping. It isn't easy, absolutely. And hopefully we'll be thinking about some hints and tips here. Brilliant from Sally. So sending her weekly emails to staff to encourage them to contact you if they were struggling. Really lovely. Really proactive about reaching out. Yeah, really like that. Yeah, because there's an increased risk, isn't there? So maybe how often we support might have had to increase slightly, or at least how we're reaching out to people. Wonderful, thank you. Picking up on words and phrases in emails, great. So picking up on tone, what kind of things people are saying, the content of those emails, if there's more kind of negative wording, a bit more pessimism as well. Yeah, fantastic. I always find as well how long it takes people to respond to emails and messages, or also the engagement that people are having on, you know, if you have Teams, like on the Teams chat, or the interactions that people are having with colleagues, more reliant on other people voicing concerns to us as well. Yeah, so it might be that people are approaching us, but I suppose what we want to do is have that balance where, yeah, as we said, weekly emails, you know, encouraging people to reach out, but also yeah, you know, making sure that we're keeping in touch with people regularly. Changing emails again, yes, because it's easy. Sorry, what's it? Easy to put on a face for an hour-and-a-half team meeting. Yeah. So I think what I've seen people do really well is where they are kind of calling informal discussions and chats with people, because I think we've lost those water cooler moments, as I would call them, where you are catching up with people informally. So, you know, again, you know, making sure that we're trying to put in social chats and informal chats in Teams meetings, or having a call with somebody where they don't think, oh, I've just got an hour where I have to look okay or say the right things. Yeah, really, really great point. Yeah, lovely. Again, try not to listen out for people struggling when they're having general chats with people, definitely, and reliant upon other people's colleagues, you know, talking about, you know, how people are getting on. Asking people, how are you twice? Harder to put on a brave face when asked twice. Completely agree. Yeah, and as we talk about in the training, you know, really easy to say, oh, how you doing? That reply of fine. So yeah, checking up, making sure that we're checking up on people. Right, equipment, so that people did have Teams calls and were able to access that. Yeah, brilliant. So making sure you're working with the IT department there as well. Weekly team meetings. Yeah, all checking in with one another. Lovely. So we've got here that if people are avoiding utilizing the videos as well. So if people are turning their videos off where they ordinarily would have them on, or if there is that, you know, requirement to have that interaction with people, yeah, if that's changed, definitely. And yeah, having meetings for a coffee and a chat, because you would do, wouldn't you? You would be having a coffee yeah, making sure that you're chatting and keeping up to date with people regularly. So rather than, you know, just making sure that it's, you know, business and all about the business. Great ideas. Yeah. Our meetings were just social meetings, not related to work on a weekly basis. I like that. And communication from our leadership team, open and honest comms, status of the company, that the company's still safe. Yeah, fantastic. So ensuring that if people are working from home, also people are furloughed as well, that they're getting those regular communications so that they don't, don't become fearful about the stability of their role and their job. Yeah, definitely. Brilliant. Really, really great. So in addition to that, thinking about maybe what might be some of the signs and symptoms that are evident when people are working from home. So we talk about signs and symptoms in relation to depression, anxiety, psychosis, from our, just going to add a couple more people in, from our training session, from becoming a mental health first aider. And it is a bit trickier, isn't it? Picking up on some of this when people are at home, or if people are seeing people less frequently. And I'm sure that is going to be something that continues moving forward. So some of the signs and symptoms that you might recognise when people are at home, a couple that you've already mentioned. So it could be recognising if people are got their cameras off, or if people aren't as present or engaged or participating in meetings as they ordinarily would be. Maybe people not engaging in the chats, replying to emails, as I've already said, might be a bit more sporadic. Like Julie mentioned as well, I think the content of people's emails, it could be people might be a bit more snappy in emails as well, or short if they're struggling. Definitely. What else might we see? So what other signs and symptoms might we be picking up on if people are working from home and struggling with their mental health? Any other ideas, or maybe things you've seen as well and supported people with? Yeah, lack of confidence and ability. Yeah, so maybe people second guessing themselves that little bit more. And we know that confidence comes from an increase in dopamine. So dopamine, one of our happy hormones. If we're not doing things regularly that's boosting our confidence, and we're not engaging in social situations which naturally increase our dopamine levels, then that's going to impact on confidence. We can think about this from a brain neuroscience point of view as well. So it makes perfect sense that people's confidence has been knocked, whilst being at home. And especially if people did have to do things like homeschooling and they found that difficult, that would have knocked their confidence in their ability, not only at home, but also at work as well. Brilliant. Avoiding face-to-face meetings, using the risk of catching the virus even outdoors. So again, thinking about people who might be struggling with their anxiety around COVID. Is it that they're wanting to catch up on Teams but not wanting to go into the office? Definitely. And they haven't really got a clear explanation of why that is. Thinking if somebody's hiding their anxiety or not openly discussing it. Really great one. And we've got somebody here that had a colleague who was always wearing their dressing gown, even on late afternoon calls, and it turned out they were really struggling with their mental health. So it could be that they're wearing things like pajamas or dressing gowns, not having those kind of boundaries between home and work, or they could even be wearing the same clothes every day as well, and not really taking care of themselves. So picking up on somebody being unkempt, definitely. Maybe their environment, maybe they're looking a bit disheveled, a bit more disheveled than usual. Brilliant. So we can pick up on some of these signs and symptoms virtually, but it is more difficult, granted. So it can be a challenge. I love the fact you're kind of thinking about just doing kind of off the cuff chats with people and calls with people to see how they're getting on, because it's, again, difficult to avoid if you're just contacting somebody randomly. I like those ideas. So we can pick up on some of them. Has the support changed? I think that you've kind of come up with quite a few ideas there and discussions that, it has had to, hasn't it? thinking about putting algae into practice, never did anybody who did this course 3 years ago, almost 2 years ago, in fact, think that you'd be supporting somebody through a global pandemic. Okay, so again, it has had to change, because the way of our working has changed. The anxieties particularly have changed as well. We didn't know we were going to be dealing with this, did we? And so you're all doing an absolutely fantastic job. Reading through some of your answers on the chat, really, really great, guys. So I hope that you're also giving yourselves a brilliant pat on the back. So the role of a mental health first aider then. So the reason I wanted to bring some of these things up is because to provide kind of consistency around how mental health first aid is being utilised within businesses, and also, again, for you guys to talk and chat around what has worked and what hasn't worked in relation to bringing this into your job roles. Somebody's just put here, sent tea bags, coffee and biscuits to home addresses to have on the Teams calls. That's really lovely. Yeah, so thinking about what kind of things were, being sent home to support people. Really lovely. So the role then, not that you've forgotten, but using algae, so our action plan, to provide mental health first aid and support for somebody who's experiencing a mental health issue or crisis. However, what is also really important is how we can just generally improve the communication and support that happens within our workplace, and also what other supports are available and how we can promote all of those as well. In addition to that, thinking about signposting people, what professional help is available within that person's area, because now it might be, again, thinking what supports people have got both professionally and also other supports closer to home. So, I know that I've been working with businesses where they've been supporting people to access counselling from the workplace or close to the workplace. But now that's changed because people are working from home a lot more as well. So in regards to, support in the workplace, I always say, things like employee assistance programs are perfect, are brilliant, because wait times have only got more challenging in regards to the NHS and the support that we're providing. And I'm sure that we're joined by quite a few people in Europe today as well, so who have attended training with myself in Europe. And again, I've seen similarly waiting times and access within different countries to be very similar. So employee assistance programs, again, thinking about the professional support, but also, ensuring that people are aware and people know that they don't need to go to their GP to access the support. And I'm sure you guys remember that. But, accessing the IAP service or ESO Health as well, where people can do self-referrals, is going to be much quicker than people getting an appointment with their GP and then their GP putting in a referral as well. So just a bit of a reminder around that. Just out of interest, a question to kind of put out to everybody. What has been maybe some of the barriers for you being a mental health first aider in your workplaces? So has there been any barriers, since you became accredited? Okay, so management maybe not taking it seriously or on board, or understanding that it has its place. So we're going to talk about that, how we can get management on board. Brilliant. Being remote, and understandably, COVID is the obvious one. So again, not that we thought we were going to be dealing with this when we trained as mental health first aiders. Yeah, fantastic. I really like the fact that, yeah, we've got some really great support from some of their businesses as well. So from Bethan saying that her business has been very encouraging, really supporting of people in regards to what people's needs and wants are. Yeah, fantastic. And the same from a couple of other people. Yeah, and encouraging in relation to, yeah, putting mental health first aid into practice. Really lovely to see. Fantastic. Great. Time. I think that time's a difficult one, isn't it? We're going to touch on time management. But when you have got to manage your own role and also support other people in addition to that, and probably far more people than you would have expected, and then when you first started out, yeah, we're going to think about boundaries around time and also how we can manage the conversations that we have with people in relation to time. Brilliant. Lovely. So our responsibilities then, so thinking about specifically our responsibilities as a mental health first aider, following your workplace's policies and procedure around mental health first aid and how it should be implemented in your particular workplace is going to be really important. Out of interest, who has a clear mental health first aid policy in your workplace? So just a yes or a no in the chat would be great. Or a don't know. That could also be an option. I don't think so. Okay, so we've got a couple of I don't think so's. Not sure. People are working on it, listening to, yeah, the advice that you guys are giving, which is really lovely to hear. So you're influencing that. Fantastic. Not quite sure. Okay, we're going to look at some of the content of what a policy and procedure might look like, and you can kind of guide people towards making one or getting involved in that as well. Okay, brilliant. Upholding your role as a mental health first aider in addition to your other responsibilities. So again, ensuring that you have got time aside and that your management support that as well. We're going to talk about management support, but where you can regularly catch up with people that you need to, but also have some time to share correspondence, share well-being support as well that's provided by your businesses. Yeah. And kind of keep up to date with some of the most relevant stuff. Establishing appropriate boundaries in relation to your role as a mental health first aider and how you can support you can support people. So maybe thinking about again, boundaries, time management, ensuring that you are also providing the same amount of support for everybody, so that we're not we haven't got favorite individuals that we're working with, because there are people that we do get on better than other people. And I'm sure utilizing that idea of the frame of reference, there's going to be people that we just connect with much more, and maybe we want to support more and we have an emotional connection with. But what we want to do is put that stuff aside, making sure that we are keeping in contact with everybody, or that we're providing that same level of support for all as well. And then refreshing your skills every year. So it is expected that as accredited mental health first aiders that you are provided with a refresher for 4 hours every 3 years. So within that, it's a refresher of the ALGE, case studies, mental health news, updated statistics. So when you are due your mental health first aid refresher, you will be sent a reminder, or your workplace contact will be sent a reminder, and then you'll be added onto that in due course. So I think for some of you that'll be coming up next year, at the beginning of next year, kind of February, March time, and then everybody else will then be sent a reminder from then. So talking to management then and thinking about your role within the business. Okay. So very important that we think about how we're promoting ourselves as mental health first aiders. So as I talk, if you put in the chat box how you do that in your workplace, that'd be brilliant. So how do you promote yourselves as mental health first aiders? How do people know who you are and where you are and how to find you? And I've put a couple of these things on that I think are really helpful. So you can have a lanyard. So Mental Health First Aid England do provide the option to access lanyards. Lanyards, I think, are £1 each. Again, there's no kind of profit in this, but these are directly kind of ordered from Mental Health First Aid England. Similarly, there is a badge. So you can have a little badge with this logo on at the side, Mental Health First Aider. So that's a really lovely one to have as well, so people are aware of that. And Mental Health First Aid England don't provide these to buy. However, I have found them, and I know some businesses that utilise them, and they're desk flags. So it might be in your business you have desk flags for your first aiders or your fire wardens, but this is a desk flag for mental health first aider. So when people are in the office, that they are presented on people's desks, so people know who to talk to, sorry. So that's a good one. You also have your email signatures that you can add on. When you completed the course, you will have been sent the option to download that and add that to your email signature. So I would highly recommend doing that as well, because we send, many emails a day. I know some of you that will probably send hundreds of emails. So just ensuring that we're promoting our service in that way as well. So some of the things that people are coming up with as well. Lanyards, fantastic. Taglines and emails, wonderful. Auto signatures saying that you're a mental health first aider. Yeah, wear my lanyard. Emails have a note. Absolutely fantastic. Highlight mental health first aiders on the intranet as well. Also let new starters know who the mental health first aiders are as part of their induction. Really love that, Katie. Very, very, very good. So yes, so intranet, again, if you have an intranet, if people are accessing that as well, having a section around, well-being, and then having, your mental health first aiders. I think it's lovely to have a picture, so a bit of a picture, also maybe a bit of a summary around who you are, how long you've been accredited as a mental health first aider, and maybe why you're passionate about being a mental health first aider as well. Because, as we said on the training course, just because somebody is a mental health first aider for their team doesn't mean that, their team would naturally go toward that person. It could be that they would feel more comfortable talking to somebody outside of their team as well. So just knowing that people have got the option of different people within their organisation. But really lovely to see so many of you, sharing who you are and also displaying that as well. And there's posters. So, just as when people have got physical first aiders and fire wardens as well with their pictures on, again, having a poster of who your mental health first aiders are on that day, who's in on that day, and who can kind of provide support as well. Great. Really, really great. So the next one then, thinking about how people can find you. So contact telephone numbers, emails, again, how people can access you, and also what times you're available as well. So thinking about people's shift patterns, because what I don't want to happen is people contact you on your days off. Because if you are on your day off and you can access your emails, then you might be tempted to then reply, and you need to be thinking about yourself and self-care. So we want people to then think about contacting somebody else who might be more available on that particular day or in that particular working pattern as well. So that's going to be really important. So your job role description, within the mental health first aid policy, hopefully there's some guidance around who your mental health first aiders are, but also what your roles and responsibilities are and your limitations. And I think that that's also really important for you guys to adhere to and maintain, again, because of boundaries and thinking about remaining in the boundaries of the role. Thinking about from kind of a management perspective, so Mental Health First Aid England recommend that 1 in 10 people have, again, as a ratio for mental health first aiders to individuals. That's quite an achievement to have 1 in 10 people. Personally, I think it should be 1 in 10 people trained in some form of mental health awareness, and then thinking about having, mental health first aiders amongst those. Okay, so not necessarily 1 in 10 mental health first aiders, but at least trained in some kind of awareness training. It'd be grand to get everybody trained, but again, all businesses are different, and I think definitely starting with this idea in mind is important. So getting our resources in order then. So this is where, again, talking to management around, is there an intranet? Is there wellbeing resources available for individuals as well? If people don't have access to intranets, if people don't have access to emails as well, many people working in the kind of manufacturing industry, there'll be a lot of shop floor workers who don't have access to emails. So what resources are you putting around at your workplace? If you have an employee assistance program, how you're promoting that. So talking to management around that as well. Also, the posters up around in relation to who you guys are, but also just generally around mental health and well-being. I know we talked about Action for Happiness as a program and organisation that has a lot of resources available in relation to good mental health. Getting those printed, having those around as well. I also think, having things around mental health first aid or employee assistance program is good to have in things like dining rooms, canteens, toilets as well. I went to a business at the beginning of the week who have mental health first aiders, and their employee assistance program telephone number was on the back of the toilet door, and the little cards were kind of around as well in reception and in different areas of the business, because lots of people will get emails about this stuff and they might just sidetrack them. So I think, again, it's about thinking how else we can promote the services that we provide. Again, talking to management about how important it is to have some of these policies and procedures as well, and ensuring that you do have a mental health first aid policy if you are integrating that into your business, and I'll highlight what that might look like in a moment. Support hub as well. So where I've seen this being done well, and particularly in larger organisations, is where the mental health first aiders meet regularly. So they might meet quarterly, dependent on the size and how much support they're providing, it could be more often. But where we're catching up, we're thinking about if there's any trends throughout the business. Is anxiety really prevalent at the moment? Depression really prevalent? And how we can have those discussions around, right, do we need some more training around anxiety? Is it that we need more information about what anxiety is and how to access the support that's available within the business or outside of the business? So just having that in mind. Because it's important that you guys support one another and you also support yourselves. So again, accessing the support that I provide as well. So the more and more people that we get added to things like the Facebook group, people message me around if they're struggling and what kind of things they can put in place if they're struggling to support somebody, and asking questions, and I'm available for that as well. Okay, so do utilize the Facebook group for that and to support one another. And considering policies and procedures then. So you will need a mental health first aid policy, if you're integrating this into your business, ensuring that that's available and that it's in line with the mental health first aid training. A wellbeing policy, again, mental health policy, wellbeing policy, however you want to describe it. From a management point of view, from a business point of view, this is a really important policy to have. in relation to how you're supporting people with their mental health, what kind of resources are available within your workplace, things like HR, things like Oki Health, employee assistance program, additional management support, training, so that this is all listed within your policies and procedures. And again, people know how to and where to access this information. I think from a HR perspective as well, talking and having those discussions around what needs to be escalated to HR and what actually could be supported at a line manager level, because we want our line managers to be skilled in being able to support people as well. And if they're not, what kind of things can be put in place there. Stress risk assessments, again, I will have gone on about these in our training, but really important. So from a workplace, perspective, there is different stresses dependent on people's roles, as I'm sure you will have seen, but also specifically thinking about kind of the pandemic, people working from home, that should be a different stress risk assessment than people being in work, because the stresses and the impact that it can have on mental health is very different. So we're thinking about isolation, we're thinking about loneliness, difficulties with motivation, for some people, not all, but in those cases, how are we going to support people better, and how are we going to reduce some of those risks? So that might be, like you guys talked about, those regular check-ins, those weekly emails, reviewing people's well-being in team meetings, or maybe in chats, or having informal discussions as well. So that might be one example. And from a role perspective, the lorry drivers in your business are going to have different needs in relation to stress and well-being than those people who are working in the office. Again, thinking about loneliness. And it could be a whole host, thinking from a solicitor kind of lawyer point of view, individuals who work in, as an example, kind of medical negligence, that team is going to have a different level of stress than those people who are working in a different area. So things like if people are reviewing incidents, if people are reviewing things like images that might impact on their mental health and well-being as well. So just considering some of the guys that we've got here and what businesses they're in. Wellness action plans. So wellness action plans are really good to do at the start when somebody first comes into a business, or maybe, again, integrating those into the line manager roles as well. So as a mental health first aider, flagging this to line managers, but where we're just having open conversations about wellness and how we're keeping ourselves well, what we might notice or they might notice if they start to deteriorate in regards to their mental health. So just thinking about some of those. I'm going to show you an example in a moment or two. And recording of discussions. So again, data collection is really important from a mental health first aid perspective, because what we want to show management particularly is that it's working, and that we are supporting people regularly. Because if we say, oh, do you know what, this is really difficult because I'm utilising so many of my hours per month on mental health first aid, then be able to provide the evidence of that. Like, I have had discussions with 10 people, 20 people this month about these particular topics. So it's going to be important from that point of view. But also really good business practice, just as you would with physical first aid. However, what we want to ensure is that it's remained confidential, and I've got an example of what it might look like as well. So this is a mental health first aid policy example. You can download this from the membership area, so just so you can have a bit of an understanding. So I've just got the first page of the policy here that just looks at what mental health first aid is, the role of mental health first aiders, and also what mental health first aiders are able to do. In the rest of the policy, it talks about the boundaries, what they're not able to do, how to contact them. But yeah, just as an example of what that might look like. In addition to that, we then have a record sheet that I just mentioned. So ensuring that we kind of provide appropriate support, we want to make sure that we're recording that and registering it. If somebody isn't at risk, we absolutely do not need to be writing any names down. So I've just done a bit of an example, again, that you can download. So a summary of the meeting in the chat, that you had a discussion with one of your team. Again, it doesn't need to be specific. What they approached you about, the discussion that you had, the symptoms that they were presenting with, and then what support was provided. The details of the EAP were given. We talked about accessing the GP, talked about some of the helplines. So it just puts, this is just good practice. And I know that it's not always something that's easy to do if you're having lots of informal chats with people. But again, I think it's on your judgment. If you feel it'd be good to record this, then I would absolutely be backing that, because I think it's important. Do people ever record any of these discussions? Is this something that happens? So a couple of people. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I think it's difficult when you're having lots and lots of discussions with people. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so what's we got? Yes, brilliant. So we've got some yeses down. We've got yes down from Julie, fantastic. Yeah, so I think that I would highly recommend this. To factor it into the discussions you have with people, not to do it necessarily in front of them. But if you have a policy, then that will be clear within the policy that information will be recorded, but that it will remain confidential as well. So it is purely to gain data and themes so that you can support people more effectively moving forward. But again, this is a discussion to have as a mental health first aid team, as a management team, HR team. So it's not a given. I just would recommend it. Thank you, Julie. So just talking about boundaries then, I know lots and lots of information. We're not a therapist, but we are very important. So as a mental health first aider, you are very important at being a triage service, essentially, for the people that you're supporting at work. So you're able to guide people towards that professional help and also that other support that's available within your workplace. So if you have got HR, Occy Health, that you're directing people toward that. However, time management's really important. So making sure we have boundaries and that individuals aren't taking up too much of our time, because whilst we're there as a support, we also want to outsource that support as much as possible, don't we? And then we are then having those catch-ups with people to say, how's this going on with this person? Or have you accessed that counselling service yet? Or how's the EAP going? So we're doing the check-in, and a lot of the time, the work and support is outsourced as much as we can do. As I mentioned, we want to make sure we're treating everyone the same, that we are providing people with the same amount of time and support if they're presenting with similar symptoms. Obviously, some people are going to take up more of our time, but it's not the case that it's because we like the person more, okay? And I've got some questions that I think are a good reflection in a moment. Remember our frame of reference, okay? So ensure that we aren't going in and giving people lots of advice based on our past experiences, but we are aware of those. And we ask the question, I've supported somebody with similar circumstances before, or I've had these similar experiences before. Do you want me to let you know how that went? Or do you want me to share some resources? So again, not putting our frame of reference on that individual. And then what is absolutely essential, guys, is our own self-care. Okay, so really important to make sure that we're looking after ourselves. So I've got, so since being from Nolene, being a mental health first aider, I've met many people who chat, yeah, without saying a specific, yeah. Some people do just need a chat, yeah. And I think that that might be really difficult when we're thinking about if some, recording that information, yeah. So definitely, it doesn't necessarily always have to be official. We are a human, and even if we weren't a mental health first aider, we'd be having nice supportive chats with people as well, wouldn't we? I think if there's any direct guidance towards professional help or other supports, then that might be then your trigger to jot these things down and record them in a in a way that you can collect that data. And again, I think it's important to have those discussions with the management in relation to okay, I think that we should have like a central hub where we can just add this information to. Yeah. So yeah, just really important to make sure that you're recording the things that are appropriate. Really good. Yeah, good question to ask, Nolene. So in relation to boundaries, again, you're going to have this this slide. So really important, if we think that the boundaries are being a little bit skewed in regards to how we're supporting people or other people are supporting others, these are some really good questions. Do you offer the same amount of support to all colleagues and employees? Okay, or is it that you favoritize somebody? Because it's okay if you do, but it's just about stopping and reflecting on that as a mental health first aider as well. Are you the right person? And that feels a little bit uncomfortable because we want to help everybody, don't we? We want to support lots and lots of people as best we can. But it might be that there's somebody else who could support that person better. Or that person might prefer to talk to somebody else as well. That is absolutely fine. Being mindful of any conflict of interest. So if you're a manager and if somebody is going through a performance review, say, I would highly recommend that they gain support in regards to their mental health and well-being, if needed, from an additional party. I think because then the boundaries do get skewed. It's very difficult as well to manage expectations and yeah, not to have kind of the performance in mind. So I would recommend that is separate. Are you gaining from the relationship? And I've put this down because a few months ago, I had somebody come to me and said that after doing the frame of reference exercise, they realized that when people came to talk to them about their own mental health, he often would then start talking about himself, and he'd be talking about his own mental health and his own depression symptoms and what worked for him and what helped him. And he said on reflection, that conversation really was for him, and he was gaining from that because he was getting support and he found it quite cathartic to talk about his own experiences. So I think sometimes it's about having that check. Am I doing this for this individual, or is it benefiting me significantly? Obviously supporting others is beneficial. So it's beneficial for all of us because it makes us feel good. But it's where we're accessing support from them and it's not necessarily helpful for that individual at that time. And then again, are we able to put our feelings aside? So maybe if we have got a colleague who's also quite close to us and we have a good friendship with them, is it that we might need to encourage them to talk to somebody else, particularly if it's thinking about workplace stresses and again thinking about reasonable adjustments, or if you share a manager, or it might be somebody supporting them from a different team. But these are all things to kind of be mindful of, considering the whole idea of the frame of reference. So self-care then, essential. This is something that we talk about a lot in the mental health first aid training course. Reviewing that stress container, thinking about our own wellness action plans as well. Again, you can download a wellness action plan, and I'm going to talk through one of those in a moment. Reminding yourselves about this idea of the keys to a happier living. It's in your manuals. you can access the Action for Happiness website as well. And I would highly recommend actually getting Vanessa King's book. So Vanessa King wrote the 10 Keys to a Happier Living, and I've known several businesses kind of alongside other resources grabbing that one to have around the office as well, because it does talk about the most and best evidence ways to improve our health and well-being in relation to kind of the Action for Happiness movement. So again, another one I would recommend personally for yourselves, but also to share with others. Thank you, Lisbeth. Lisbeth just sent me a message to say that she's taken some good ideas. Brilliant. And you can't give from an empty cup. So again, ensuring that we're having our own personal boundaries and looking after ourselves. So a reminder of the stress container then, every day, stress drips into our stress container. So I want you to have a little think right now, what kind of stresses are dripping into your stress container? Okay, because these will be very different from when you did the training course. So have a little think, making sure that we're reviewing. Is it deadlines? Is it family? A few examples kind of here. You know, as I said, pandemic is never something that we expected to be putting into our stress container, is it? A couple of years ago. So reviewing your coping strategies, you know, how are you looking after yourselves? Just to put it out there, has anything dropped off in regards to self-care? You know, have people improved their self-care over the past couple of years, or have people found it difficult to put self-care practices into practice? A few reflections, let me know in the chat, let everybody else know as well. Really lovely. So getting some messages to say that people, yeah, I like that, diligently take time out since doing the course. Really lovely to hear. Fantastic. Yeah, people, yeah, Julie, definitely, you know, something that's really common, putting people first before your self-care. Yeah, really important to be looking after yourself and adjusting that and making sure that you're taking that time out to refresh. And yeah, hard since going back into the office. So I've seen this where people have been working from home and they've been doing nice things for themselves while they've been at home. So maybe they've been doing online yoga, breathing exercises, maybe accessing online fitness classes or getting back to the gym. And then since they've been going into the office, the commute time, then that's dropped off. Yeah. Extra cooking and cleaning. I wish that that was mine. I wish that, yeah, to cope with my stress, I cleaned, but I'm definitely the opposite. So I envy you. Yes. Yes, I love this. Again, a message. For the first time in my life with 5 children and as a single mum, I said, no, this is my time. The shock and horror was quite funny, but yeah, off they went. Brilliant. So yeah, putting yourself first, having boundaries, saying no, this is my time. Self-care is important not only for yourself, but helping others to embrace the same. Yeah, wonderful. So exercise really good for you, Sue, but also promoting the fact that self-care is important. And if you are a colleague, and particularly if you're a manager, role modeling that as well. So if you're working all hours, if you're not taking a break, if you're expressing tiredness and and exhaustion when you're in the office or you're having meetings with people, really sending a message to other people that they should be doing the same, even if that's not your intention at all, that their internal you know, thinking processes might shift to, oh, maybe I should be doing some more work. So again, thinking about the role modeling. So we've got from Natalia, in some ways, yes. working from home has allowed more opportunity to exercise, eat healthily, brilliant. However, on the other hand, there is a feeling of being more connected to work and a compulsion to work more or longer hours. Yes, such an important point. I'm going to come on to that. This is just a reminder in regards to the stress signature and early warning signs to keep an eye out of. And I would highly recommend revisiting that stress container. So having a think about balancing, some of those stresses, utilizing those helpful coping strategies as well, and what might need to change moving forward, if the shift and the balance has changed, just to let some of that stress out. And I think this moves me on really nicely, Natalia, to looking after ourselves in regards to boundaries at work. So working from home, and this is things that we can guide other people towards as well. It's really difficult when we're not putting in the boundaries in relation to our time and our space. So I would highly recommend that people do have and continue to have, if you have already, a particular workplace or space in their home, and checking this with your colleagues as well, where they can shut it away when it's now home time. So keeping and sticking to the same boundaries in relation to work time when they're at home. And I always suggest, because a lot of people say it's really grey, there's a lot of skewed boundaries around shutting off from home if your laptop's over there or your computer's over there. When you finish work, I would suggest going out for a walk, a run, doing some meditation for 20 minutes, half an hour, just like you would, thinking about the commute on the way home. You have a bit of downtime, don't you? You have a bit of thinking time. Put that in place. And then when you come back home, you open that door, then it's home time. So you're actually physically creating a space and a time in between work and home, rather than shutting your laptop and then going straight into the kitchen, starting making dinner, or going straight into another home job or role. So having a bit of that space and boundary is going to be really important. Also, people say I'm not taking breaks. Definitely need to be taking breaks. And also encouraging other people to take breaks as well. We're much more effective when we take breaks than when we don't. So if we're not taking a break, it just doesn't make productivity sense. I think we're like something like 71% more effective when we take a break than if we don't. In addition to that, setting boundaries in relation to emails and calls. Turning notifications off on phones and computers when we're not actually working, and thinking about other people's boundaries as well. So we can set boundaries and say, I'm only as an example, I'm only working Harper's State until Harper's 4 every day, unless it's urgent, as an example. That's a boundary. Okay. Or I have to pick my child up at this time on this day, and it's non-negotiable. So having some non-negotiables as well, dependent on you. In addition to that, being respectful of other people's boundaries. So if somebody else says, if you send me an email at Harper's 4 in the evening, at Harper's 7 in the evening, don't expect a reply, unless it's urgent, because that's my home time. And again, having boundaries about what's urgent or not, dependent on your workplace and dependent on your role as well, because I know that everybody comes from a different kind of industry. If you are sending emails and it works for you, as an example for me, I might deliver training courses a few days a week, and then I might go and do something nice for myself on a Thursday, but do a few hours of an evening. Then at the bottom of my emails, I have an email signature that says, I work flexible kind of hours. If you receive an email out of your working hours, then please never feel like you need to respond. So it suits me, it doesn't suit you. So just making sure that people are aware that you're not expecting a reply if you send one out of their working hours. Any questions in relation to keeping boundaries, or any comments? Let's have a little drink. So thinking about that theme of self-care, aiding our own mental health and wellness is essential. So this is just a reminder, guys, you know all of this stuff, but nutrition, so important for mental health. And I'm talking about this more at the moment because we're coming into winter. And we know that our vitamin D levels naturally decline over winter because of the lack of sunlight. So again, considering supplements, so vitamin D supplements throughout the winter, increasing our B vitamins as well to try and combat some of the natural fatigue and lethargy that might occur during the winter months. So, you know, iron, folate, think about vitamin B12 as well, really, really important. And also encouraging our teams to do that and our colleagues to do that as well. So maybe finding some information around nutrition and mental health and sharing that with people, or just sharing a bit of a summary. Again, a reminder for the Food for Brain organization. So their website's really great. They have downloadable resources that you can share. And the Healthline website is also really good in relation to thinking about not only vitamin and mineral health, but also gut health, and sharing information and fact sheets for people around gut health and mental health. So yeah, really important. Water, you know, for you guys, you know, really essential that we're staying hydrated, you know, really simple thing to be doing. But also from a workplace perspective, you know, making sure that those things are still available to people so that people still feel they can access things like this, like kind of think about canteens and things that is also healthy. Yeah, I've seen a lot of businesses doing really, really great stuff in relation to nutrition and well-being at work as well, and sharing the knowledge, and keeping a check on people working from home as well. Yeah, making sure that they, you know, make sure you're having your lunch and your break and grabbing something, you know, good that's going to make you feel good, that isn't going to give you that afternoon slump. If you haven't already, we had a brilliant expert talk from Sue, who came to talk to us about nutrition and mental health. And she was talking about how we can combat things like afternoon slump, and what kind of foods to eat in the afternoon to support wellness as well, and mental health at work. So do check that out if you haven't already. Yeah, immediate stress reducers, aren't they? Kind of exercise, sleep. We had an expert talk on sleep as well. So Samantha Coulshaw came and talked to us about what kind of hints and tips she had in regards to good sleep hygiene as well. She did a meditation that you can access. So I just want to give you guys as many resources to look after yourselves as possible, and also for you to share with others. So do make sure that if you are kind of struggling with sleep, or you want to maintain good sleep, that you download the expert talk from, I think Samantha was in July, but you can also download her fact sheet and her meditations as well, free meditation for everybody that's in our membership. And yeah, putting that time aside, ensuring that you're getting relaxation, and that you're taking time out for yourself as well. You know, just like we've heard from other people, you know, it's really important for productivity, but also confidence as well, and resilience. So I've just popped an example of what a wellness action plan might look like. Again, free to download. So you can download one of these from the membership site, and also you can do these with other people, which I think it's just a good idea for everyone in every organization to have one, to be honest, and communicate that with other people. I've seen people start to add these into appraisals, so where they might have missed them in recruitment, and then kind of picking these up and having these conversations in appraisal meetings. So wellness action plan, what it is, why it's important, and then just some questions. What would you look like if you were really well? What kind of things might increase the likelihood of you getting poor mental health at work? What kind of early warning signs? You know, we're thinking about integrating that stress container in here as well, aren't we? What could your manager do? What could they do? What kind of additional support might they require, if any, as well? So I think that that's just a bit of an overview around the wellness action plan and how that might be effective. And I know, again, businesses that are doing this well are starting to integrate these into just general practice now. So again, highly recommend this, and for you to talk to your management about it. And then finally, keeping up to date. So as I mentioned, refresher every 3 years. It's only 4 hours. So whether that's, you know, with all of the your workplace colleagues that attended the mental health first aid course previously, so that will be put on again. But please do book yourself onto any of the refreshers that we've got from next year. So it'll be from next February. So the start of when we started to deliver mental health first aid courses, and then you can book yourself on, and they will become available in the next newsletter. So that will go out with the list of refreshers available next year. So check that. Making sure that you're keeping up to date with mental health news and statistics and procedures and legislation as well. So you will hopefully be getting regular updates from Mental Health First Aid England. I think they're monthly, aren't they? So read them, you know, check them out. I'll start adding them to the Facebook group as well. And any additional resources or documents that I think would be good for you guys to be aware of, I'll add to the Facebook group if they're not already there as well. And we've just taken on an employee, so she's going to be in charge of making sure that all of that is up to date and the resources are added into the appropriate areas as well. So that's yeah, really great news. So she'll be doing that. And if you ever have any ideas or anything that you would like in the Facebook group, or anything you would like in regards to resources, then please, you know, drop me an email, you know, send me a message on the Facebook group, however best you want to contact me, and I'll get back to you. So just so you're aware that, and that would be really great if you could come up with some ideas too. And share that information with your community. You know, I don't want you to be precious about this stuff. This is about sharing it with everybody else as well. So you are a resource. So being able to triage people, brilliant, but also just again, breaking down that stigma and discrimination in relation to mental health in the workplace. So keep sharing and keep doing what you're doing, because I see some absolutely fantastic stuff that you guys kind of share on LinkedIn and Instagram, and also that you're sharing with me. So thank you. You know, I appreciate every message and email that I get from you guys. So thank you very much. You've got your resources, as I've said, on the AV Well Hub membership site. I'll send you a reminder of the link of where to get that stuff. Stress risk assessments, these are required by law. So again, ensuring that your management have got stress risk assessments and they're relevant. It's easy to knock out a stress risk assessment that's not necessarily relevant to people's roles. So yeah, asking the question about, you know, are they up to date? Are they relevant? Do we take into account different people's roles within the business as well? You will also, I don't know if you have access to a PDF when you trained as a mental health first aider, which is your role as a mental health first aider. There's some lovely stuff in there, access to lots of different resources. But if you haven't got that, or if you might have missed the email on accreditation, then I will put that in the Facebook group, and I'll also share that in the next newsletter as well. So you have access to that alongside these slides and the recording. Corporate documentation. So again, checking with management that you've got a mental health first aid policy, and share my example if you haven't, you know, so that they know what's expected, what should be in the mental health first aid policy, and how to communicate that with all your mental health first aiders as well. And if you have an intranet, keeping those resources up to date and sharing the knowledge that you have as well. And that's just a reminder of the hub. So accessing their past expert talks alongside the resources. But again, I'm going to share that link with you on completion of today's workshop. Okay, brilliant. Lots and lots of info shared today. Hopefully some things that were helpful in regards to your role and your responsibilities. But I have no doubt that, you know, what you've been doing and how you've been supporting people has been excellent. You know, else I wouldn't have accredited you all. Yeah, I've seen some fantastic stuff. I've heard some case studies and how people have, you know, put these into practice. So I absolutely had no doubt, but I hope it reassures you that you're doing a really good job. And also gives you some ideas about how you can promote yourselves, what kind of things need to be in practice in your workplaces as well, and also where to access me and each other. Yeah, so you can share some of these ideas on things like the Facebook group and the membership site. So please do that so that you can support and guide one another, because you've come up with some absolutely fantastic ideas today. Any questions in relation to mental health first aid? Any trickiness that you've come up against? Then please fire them into the chat and I can answer them. So use these last kind of 5 minutes to answer any questions that any of you have. Oh, you're welcome, Julie, no problem. Yeah, just ensuring that you are checking up on people regularly, you know, thinking about the times if people are working from home. And also if people are finding it difficult to balance working from home and being in the office, then I would be, I would be maybe talking about the pros and cons around that in relation to work productivity, their family life, but also their own mental health and the impact that it might have. I've seen lots of people say that they've got staff that purely want to work from home. And whilst I can see the benefit, I also think that it would be beneficial for the individuals and also the teams to at least have so many days that in the office to ensure that we're reducing the risk of social isolation, particularly. Oh, you're welcome, Bethan. No problem whatsoever. Oh, thank you, Andrew. No worries, you can catch up on the recording. So anything you missed at the beginning, you can get the recording, but you'll have the slides as well if you don't want to hear me harp on. Well, you're welcome, everyone. If anyone thinks of any questions, you know where to find me. So drop me an email. Also, yeah, Facebook group, you know, if you're in the Facebook group, and if you're not, I think every month the link gets sent out in the newsletter. So if you want to join, you will need a Facebook profile. However, it's a closed group, it's a business group. So yeah, you can access that. Oh, you're very welcome. So we'll call it there then. So have a wonderful weekend. Make sure that you look after yourselves, you get some rest and relaxation and reflection time, and that you finish on time today if you're working today. So thank you so much, everybody. And yeah, I shall see you all in your refreshers, and some of those are coming up soon. See you later, everyone. Take care. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye, Julie. Thanks, Bethany, Frederica, Natalia.